Hey everybody, this is Rybo at the bench, and today I'm coming at you with a watch review. Today I am reviewing the Seiko SNK809. This is the black version of the SNK line. I believe there's also a blue version, a green version, and there may be a khaki, although that might be a different line technically. But either way, today is the Seiko SNK809 with that very, very sweet dial. Before we get into the watch review today, let me do a wristwatch check, because today I'm wearing something a little bit different. This is the Orient Esteem. I call this my Jersey Shore watch. This is definitely not my style typically, but my wife really likes it, and happy wife, happy life, so I make it work. This is on a very nice khaki colored NATO strap with a black PVD coated hardware that I got off of Amazon, and it just kind of gives the watch less of a Jersey Shore look, I think, and more of, I don't know if you'd call it, I don't know what you'd call it. It's different, but I like it. It works for me. It's an open heart, so you get to see that really nice automatic movement in there. And that rose gold, you know, I've really come to enjoy it. It's not something that I would be drawn to typically, but wearing it, the way that it catches the light, it looks like it does not photograph very well, but either way, I really like it. So, all right, let's get into the review. So today we're talking about the SNK809. Now, a few things real quick. Obviously, this is not the stock strap. I think there are roughly a million other reviews on the SNK series, and they all mention how bad the strap is. Yes, it's pretty terrible. I have replaced this with a Haveston strap. This is my first Haveston strap. It definitely will not be my last. I love this strap. I want to say this is the Carrier. I think all of their straps are the colors and the schemes, the stripe patterns come from either old military planes, ships, what have you. This I want to say is the Carrier. Either way, it is a fantastic watch strap. Let me see if I can get that hardware in focus here, and I probably will fail. There we go. Nice Haveston logo. This is the polished hardware. You've got the nice in there, and I don't exactly know what it is about this that makes it such a great strap. I think it's a combination of the fact that the material is very nice. It's robust. It's not flimsy like a lot of the cheap NATOs you'd get, but it's not as thick as some of even the cheap NATOs that you might get off of Amazon. I digress, because really we're talking about the watch. I'm going to have a full review of the Haveston strap later, probably once I can get one or two more, just to get kind of a better feel of them. But either way, I'll have it on the Haveston today. Maybe I'll show off one or two other straps that work well. So the SNK809 and really this whole line, there are, I want to say, three total watches in the SNK line, and price-wise, you're looking at around $50 to $70. You'll usually find them on Amazon listed between that range. I paid kind of at the high end of that, just due to kind of weird circumstance. You know, you can see them as high as, I think, over 100, 150. It's all supply and demand. I want to say that Random Rob may have had a video a while back on a spike in the prices. You know, Amazon's algorithms are kind of crazy. I've done some tracking on that on other watches, and it's really interesting if you start really price tracking watches. But either way, you can get this watch well under $100, well under $70 if you really are not in a hurry. If you watch this thing, it's a $50 automatic watch, which is why it makes it very interesting to review, and it's a very polarizing watch to many people. All right, so size comparison. So I've only really brought in one other watch. That is the Seiko SKX. So this is the 007. I've reviewed many times. I actually don't wear it on the strap very often because I'm not an orange guy, but you know, it photographs so well, so I had to throw it on the orange NATO. Usually I'm doing something like this gray, kind of gray khaki NATO. But this is a good thing. So you can see that the SNK is a good bit smaller. You can also see, especially compared to a Seiko Diver, whether it be a Turtle or in SKX, it's a good bit thinner as well, which is pretty impressive given that it's an automatic watch. So very small, very thin, but I think it wears very nicely. It is a fantastic watch. Little spoiler alert, I really, really like this watch. So size-wise, it's a little bit smaller than kind of what you're used to in 2018 as far as watches go, but I think it's a nice size that works well. It kind of can play the wear to the office watch, or something that you're just wearing around the house on the weekends. I think it does really well and is pretty versatile. All right, so purpose, like I said, this is kind of an all-around watch. I mean, to me, it kind of feels a little bit like a pilot's watch. It's just kind of an all-around sport watch. I mean, the Seiko 5s are just kind of all-around sport watches. They're rugged, they're durable. This watch doesn't really necessarily, in my mind, I don't know, evoke the sense of ruggedness. It's not a watch that I'd like to beat up, but from what I've heard, you can, and they're pretty resilient. So all around watch, I think it's a fantastic entry point. I think this is pretty much everyone's kind of, I don't know, consensus on this watch is that it's a great entry point to automatic watches. And so, that's kind of what you're looking at. So overview, like I said, not the stock strap. Obviously, I've replaced that. But let me actually take it off of this watch band real quick, just to give kind of an overview. Obviously, you have this kind of bead blasted case. You do have some polishing on the inside here and on the inside here. And then obviously on the back, you've got a polished outer ring there, and you've got a see-through movement there. So you have the display case back, which is really nice, especially for an entry-level automatic that's an actual automatic watch. It's a very nice thing. So, for guys who are just getting into automatic watches, and really even if you look at something like this Orient, it's an open heart. There's something about being able to see the movement inside of a watch. I have a vintage Bulova. It does not have a display case back, but when I take off the back and look at it, man, I wish it did, because there's just something beautiful about seeing that. And so, that's kind of a cool thing. So you have the crown at the 4 o'clock position, or I guess nearly 4 o'clock there. And then you've got kind of this very interesting dial. So you've got the triangle 12 indice, and then you've got, really the markers are in the minute increments, so 5, 10, 15, 20. It's a day date, 21 joules, and it's a Seiko 5. And so you've got all black and white with a little bit of red on the tip, and then when you get to, I think, Sunday, you've also got red on the day there. All right, so that's kind of an overview of the watch. I do not remember the specs on the water resistance. I'm not really big into detailed specs and reviews like these because you've probably seen them 1,000 times and are a little bit tired of them. While I've got the watch off, I'm going to throw it on my other favorite NATO strap. This is I guess a take on the Bond NATO, a little bit darker, black polished, black PVD hardware. I think I just got this off of Amazon. It's a pretty cheap strap. Also very long strap, so I have to fold it up quite a bit. But really cool looking. I think it plays very well with this watch. You be the judge. Definitely has that kind of tactile look that, I don't know, works well for me. I like it a lot. Functions, I mentioned it's a day date, and that's pretty much it. It does not have hacking. It's not hand windable. You do have a quick set on the day and the date, which is really nice. So you pull the crown to the one position, and you can quick set forward or backward for the day and the date, and pull it out to the second position, and you can set the time. That comes in handy because for me, I have a lot of watches. This is not a daily wear, so anytime I pick this watch up, I'm going to be setting the day and the date. Really, even if I bother, a lot of times, especially with vintage watches, which this isn't, but a lot of times with day-date automatic watches, I just pick them up, set the time, and go. But that's just me. All right, so I guess readability. So this is a very interesting dial. And I really love it. I guess some people don't love it. It's fairly busy, but I just think it's really cool, especially for such an inexpensive watch. I think the dial is laid out really nicely. I mean, you have a lot going on here, but if you think about it, it's all really helpful information. So you've got, you know, the minute increments over here in increments of 5, and then you've got the hours and small numbers down here. I think it plays really nicely. It's something a little bit different. To me, it's something that people notice who maybe aren't watch people, and they may ask about. I think that it's really nice. You know, the one thing I would say readability wise is in the dark, you know, this thing, it can be a little bit trippy, I guess, because you've got essentially lume on each indice in this dot, but you don't have, if I'm not mistaken, you do not have lume on this triangle here that marks the 12. I think if they were to add lume to that, it would really help readability in the dark. The lume on this guy is very good. I was actually hanging out with my dad the other day, and I was showing him how nice the lume was when it's fully charged up. It's just a really bright green. Seiko tends to do that very well. Let me see if I can charge this in the light real quick. Charging. Bring it back under here. Yeah, so you can just barely see that. You know, obviously I've got kind of a well-lit workshop out here, but the lume is just fantastic. The hands, very readable, big white hands. You've got the second hand that goes around. I love that the lumed pip is on the counterbalance there, which is kind of nice. I think that is the same thing that your SKX does here. It's a nice touch. It kind of tells you it's a Seiko, something a little bit different. I know a lot of people really hate that. I think it's really nice. I also love that counterbalance here goes right on the inside of the numbers. That was one of the first things I noticed when I got this watch, is that it works very well. All right, so let's see. Besides that, lume, we talked about readability. I mean, readability from all angles. Obviously, it's an automatic. So yeah. So to me, very readable. Just a great everyday watch. You know, nothing to complain about there. Timekeeping. So this is probably the biggest knock against this watch is the timekeeping. So a lot of people complain that this watch just doesn't keep time. And I hear those complaints. I understand it. I think mine is losing. I've tracked it a couple times, you know, for maybe 3-4 days. I think I've done a week or two interval at certain points, and I want to say mine's tracking around 28 seconds. I can't remember if that's plus or minus, but either way, 28 seconds off a day. Yeah, that's not fantastic, especially when you track that with a G-Shock or something, or even with your SKX. However, this is a $50 watch if you're smart, and you know, for me at least, this is not my everyday $50 watch. If it was, you know, I would assume that you could try to regulate that. You know, I haven't really tracked this wearing it weeks at a time, but for me, I'm setting this guy and wearing it for a day, maybe 2 days max. And so for me, you know, the timekeeping is just not that big a deal. There's no meetings that I have to go to where if I'm 5 seconds late or 28 seconds early that it really matters that much. So for me, the accuracy is not that important. What I'm really looking at is the legibility of the dial, the look, you know, those types of things. I'm a big Seiko fan, and so I like that. So for me, not a big deal. I can understand if it is for some people. If it is, go get you a G-Shock 5610, a 5600, something like that. Get you something solar atomic. That way you're never going to be late by even a second. So for me, timekeeping, not a big deal, but I think that's probably one of the biggest complaints against this watch. Let's see. That's about it. So how would I improve this watch? I don't know. This is a fantastic watch. You know, I think if you were to make this any bigger, it would look like a modern day fashion watch. I really like it. Sometimes I'm not crazy about the red tip to this second hand here. You know, it does add a little bit of color, but it also takes away that kind of dual color look that this has going for it. You know, I think if I remember correctly, I want to say, yeah, there we go. The logo here, the Seiko 5 logo, is the only thing applied. And if you can kind of see that as I go, I think everything else is just printed. You know, I don't really expect much else from the watch, but so the dial, everything, timekeeping, I'm not really that concerned with. The one thing that I do not understand why they won't fix about this watch, that would be cheap to do, it's not difficult to do, and I cannot understand, is the crown. The crown sucks. The crown is the worst crown of any watch that I have, and that's because you can barely see the crown when you're holding it. So how in the world are you supposed to turn it? If I pull this crown out, that's to the second position. Compare that with something like my Seiko SKX. Now granted, this is a dive watch. This is something that has to have a screw down crown. You have to be able to kind of play with this when you're wearing gloves. I get that. But that is a tiny crown, and when I'm trying to wind this thing, I'm sorry, not wind this, when I'm trying to set the time or set the date, you know, I'm pulling this out to the 1 position, and you know, I'm having to use my fingernails just to turn this and set the date or set the day. It's really annoying, especially if you are setting time, you're at the 2nd position, and maybe you're winding past 12 o'clock. You know, you're really having to turn for every half hour. I mean, that's just painful. That's terrible. I don't understand it. Even pulling out the crown, you have this tiny, let me see if I can even get it, this tiny little nail nick in there. And most of the time, I can't even get my fingernail in there to pop it out. It's just not a pleasant experience. So if there was one thing I'd improve about this watch, it is for sure improving this crown, making it easier to wind, because most people, and I say most people who own this watch are you know, own this as a part of a collection. It is not their only watch. Now certainly there are people who it is their only watch. In fact, I love this watch so much, I gave this to a good friend of mine who was traveling overseas. He was moving overseas, and I wanted to give him something going away. You know, I got him this. I actually made him a custom leather band, which goes really nicely with this, kind of a chocolate brown leather band. Looks very nice. He was new to automatic watches. I thought this was a great one to start off with because he didn't have to worry about beating it up. So most guys, though, that own this aren't owning this as their one daily wear watch. I know a couple people who have this. It's not their only watch. And so, you know, to me, improve this crown, make it easier to quick set, and this thing is an absolute gold. Bottom line though, cut or carry, definitely a carry. I wear this thing all the time. I really like it. You know, it's understated, and you know, with other watches that might be a couple $100, you might feel weird wearing this, but man, it's a fantastic watch when you're looking for something smaller. You don't want a big bulky dive watch or whatever. It's just a fantastic watch. So hope this has been informative. You know, there's a couple 100,000 to million SNK809 reviews out there. If you found mine, lucky you or unlucky you, you be the judge. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.